Good morning and welcome, early bird. We'll get started here in a few minutes. Welcome. Good morning, Lori. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. Thanks for hopping on early. Good morning, Yesenia. Good to have a friendly name on here. We'll get started in just a few minutes if you got a gang with you. And for those who can't make it right away, we'll certainly share around the recording, etc. Good morning, Trish. Another friendly face. We're going to give folks 2 more minutes to join. We're going to start right on time because we've got 30 minutes and a lot of good stuff to cover. All right, we've got a few more folks flowing in. Welcome, welcome. Good morning. We will get started here in just about 1 more minute. And those of your friends who couldn't make it on time or couldn't make it at all, make sure they know we'll have a recording we can share around here. So lots to cover. Quick 30 minutes today. So we're going to keep this kind of webinar format. And that means you'll stay on mute and off camera. But by all means, feel free to punch your questions into the chat. I've got a couple of compadres here that are keeping an eye on that. So if you do have questions that you need to get out of your brain right away, feel free to type them in. And of course, we'll all reach out after this session if you wanted to engage directly and talk more. All right, awesome. We're starting to assemble a pretty good sized group here, and we're expecting even more. So for those of you who are early and on time, thank you. We'll go ahead and we'll get things kicked off. So welcome to part 2 of Confessions of a Bullhorn Power User. This is my little pet project here where I talk about my 19 years in the Bullhorn ecosystem and some of the sins that I've committed and how I've recovered and helped other clients kind of get on a good path with optimizing their Bullhorn systems. If you didn't get a chance to see the first edition, we talked a little bit about some of the out of the box Bullhorn features that are underused, in my opinion. And we're happy to share that recording around as well. We're actually going to record that, re-record and repost that here in the next week or so. So if you're looking to catch up on what we covered in the last session, stay tuned. For this session, we are going to talk about taking some of your Bullhorn wish list, some of those great ideas that you and your users have shared with you over time, and really figuring out how best to incorporate those into Bullhorn. This is all about mapping and aligning Bullhorn to your process as opposed to the other way around. This is really going to be about understanding some capabilities of Bullhorn at a high level. So this isn't going to be a training session. It's not going to be incredibly hands-on, but what I do hope to do is kind of pull back the curtain on some things that you may not know Bullhorn and the Bullhorn products can do. And really, this is to inspire you to take your knowledge from this session, go back to that wish list, dust it off, or maybe start a wish list with your Bullhorn users. And then we can talk together about how we can help. So first up, what's new? Certainly on this end, we've had some big news. Last time we did this, I was wearing a different badge as part of the 6L organization. And now we have joined forces with Newberry Partners. So it's an incredibly exciting and happy time here for the two companies. And really what we hope this brings is kind of the greater than the sum of all parts, right? We're bringing together some really, really strong enterprise scale capabilities, a really strong relationship-based service with a very mature, scalable implementation methodology on the Newbury Partners product development and innovation. All of that kind of brings us together as the market share leader in terms of Bullhorn partners with full mastery of Bullhorn from end to end. So if you're wondering whatever happened to 6L, we're Newbury now, and it's a great thing. Today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about some more of the advanced capabilities. And again, it's about aligning your system to your process and not the other way around. Some of these are native, built in, things that you can access today as soon as we hang up the call in the configuration area. We're also going to talk a little bit about Bullhorn automation and when and where and how that can be used to really kind of extend and optimize Bullhorn, as well as some customization options. I almost struggled with using the word because customization sometimes has a little bit of a negative connotation. People get scared about customizing something because then what happens when there's an upgrade, or will that code break when Bullhorn releases something new? So I don't want it to come off as that sort of customization. Bullhorn's given us some really interesting ways to build our own little tailored processes within the native Bullhorn flow so that it is immune to any potential downstream issues with future releases. So configuration, automation, customization, those are the words of the day. For those of you that did see chapter 1, this little image might look familiar. We talked about configuring your submission workflow in the native Bullhorn tools and how you can go in and tailor those different statuses and stages and actually have them visible in your system, so you can create those breadcrumbs for your recruiters and salespeople to follow through in the system. Obviously, if you haven't seen this and this interests you, make sure you check out that recording of chapter 1, and we'll be sure to share that around. This is all delivered, or what we covered in that first session is all delivered with the out-of-the-box configuration tools. Those are available to your Bullhorn administrator users. The self-service tools include the field map tool, which allows you to design and define the data that you're capturing. What fields are visible and accessible on the edit tab for each of your Bullhorn screens. And with that self-service tool, and by the way, all of these are hyperlinks. So when we share the deck, this is going to bring you right to some knowledge base articles. With that field maps tool, you can go in and modify how those fields on the edit tab work. You can define default values. You can create a custom field that didn't exist in standard Bullhorn. You can do some interesting configuration around your drop downs and your pickers. And you can even update the attributes of existing fields, making them required, changing the order in which they appear, and changing the label or the hint around that field. So even just out of the box, you have a lot of capability to tailor the Bullhorn screens to your process and your specific business flow. The view layout tool, which allows you to kind of design the overview and the list view. You can set up your own default kind of cards that appear on the overview. You can set up the way your mobile app works for Bullhorn. Obviously, it needs a slightly different looking configuration for the smaller screen. You can even set up custom cards, custom tabs, and those often are where we in the Bullhorn community will host things like iframes for integrations or marketplace partners. Anytime you see one of those marketplace partners show up in your Bullhorn system, it's generally delivered through a custom card, tab, or action. And that's all configured inside of view layout. And then the third leg of that sort of self-service tool are the Bullhorn system settings. And that's where you can go in and configure some of the cross-entity workflow, like your note types, your task types, your submission statuses, these guys up here in that flow across the top. You can also go in there and build the workflow icons or the breadcrumbs that sit across the top of each record. Those, you do not need to keep the ones that you are delivered with Bullhorn. You can go in and customize and tailor those out of the box. You can also update your entity titles. So if you don't call them candidates, you call them associates or you call them consultants, that is something you can change at one setting in Bullhorn and have that holistically flow through the rest of your UI. There are other configuration elements that may not be as self-service, but can easily be changed, influenced, updated with a little help from a partner like us or Bullhorn support. So if you need to go in and change something that a user can see or a user can do within Bullhorn, you want to lock something down or you want to open something up, that is something that you can work with Bullhorn support to update user entitlements and assign those access to those actions, those menus, those reports, those dashboard cards by user type or user level. We can also help set up things that are called custom objects, which are a great way to handle if you have data overflow. You've run out of custom fields, or maybe you just need to apply a different level of security to a specific subset of data on an entity record. So on your placement record, maybe you want to have an area that's only visible to your back office team. And the folks in the front office shouldn't have access to see that subset of data. A custom object is an excellent way to deliver that. What's also nice about a custom object is it can be a history record. So if you really need to be able to see the changes that have occurred in that data, a custom object shows you that entire history without having to go crawl through the edit history or the audit. And then alongside the system settings that you can see and you can influence, there are some that are a little more behind the curtain that need to be accessed by Bullhorn support. So if you're wanting to go update your burden rates that show up on your gross margin calculation on your placement, that's something that happens behind the scenes. If you're wanting to go change your opt-in settings for how new leads, new contacts, new candidates come in and whether they're opted in or out of any marketing communications, that's a system setting that Bullhorn support would need to work with you on. Or if you just want to revisit some of the defaults, where statuses like new lead. Sometimes people want to make a change to how things enter into the system for the first time, and that is configurable. Just needs a quick ticket into the Bullhorn support team to update that system setting. So lots of capability here, but you want more. We want to see what can we do to take our customization or tailoring of the system to the next level. And the first tool would be Bullhorn automation always. Bullhorn automation has been on the scene for a number of years now. If you remember Herefish, which was formerly a partner, a marketplace partner in that ecosystem, that is now part of the Bullhorn product suite. And it is really, really deeply integrated and very, very, very valuable. And when we talk with clients, we talk about the kind of the tenets or the pillars of automation. What value does this bring? And it really comes in three different areas. Productivity, which is taking away the administrative tasks that are routine and very kind of formula driven so that your recruiters and salespeople can focus on building relationships and generating revenue. Things like task reminders, email notifications to let you know when something is coming due or requires your attention, those check-ins that you're doing at the end of day one, week one, or 3 weeks before that placement is about to come to a close. Rather than a sticky note or something scribbled on a calendar, let Bullhorn automation remind you of those upcoming events. In terms of communication, Bullhorn automation is also a marketing tool. So sending out emails, campaigns, surveys, whether it be to your talent pool or to your sales contacts, Bullhorn automation makes this really easy, and it does a bit more than what your kind of traditional mass mail from Bullhorn does, in that it will track all of the engagement, and you can even build sort of drip and step campaigns from the engagement. So if an email is opened, you can follow up, you can add someone to a secondary list that engages them in a deeper conversation. The third, and honestly, I think one of the most important, is using automation to keep your data healthy. Automation can be set up to look at patterns in the data, look at aged records that haven't had a note or a placement in X number of years, and update those records, maybe to archive them and put them into sort of a quarantine area if they're getting in your way. Identifying missing data. We're going to talk about some real examples that we've done with clients here, but reaching out to clients when you know you have a piece of missing information and asking for them to upload it to their profile automatically. This can all happen offline from your recruiters having to make that outreach. If you're lucky enough to be on the enterprise edition of Bullhorn automation, even more functionality comes into these areas. So under the productivity area, you can leverage machine learning and AI to automatically match jobs to candidates, candidates to jobs, creating sort of an automatic pipeline and really helping you at the end of that placement to redeploy those candidates out to other opportunities that fit their skills. And under communication, enterprise level adds a scheduling tool that looks at the calendar of each of the Bullhorn users and will allow individuals, applicants, candidates to even maybe select a time on a calendar, and a chatbot that you can install on your website that can be trained to ask questions and write information back into your Bullhorn database, keeping everything up to date. So there are some caveats here. Bullhorn automation is not exactly real time. It does run behind the scenes, and that is generally around about a 15-minute refresh. It is somewhat limited on which entities it can access and whether custom items can be pulled into automation. Of course, this is a product that's continued to be developed, so some of this will become part of the core features. But at the moment, it is generally a front office facing tool, generally. And that introduces some reasons why we might even need to go a step further. But before we do, I want to introduce Rick Spano from our Talent and Automation Solutions team, and he's going to let you know of a few really interesting automation projects we've done with our clients. So go ahead, Rick.
Yep. Thanks, Russ. Yeah, there's a lot that I feel like once Bullhorn automation, the project ends, a lot of the folks that were implementing that project or on that project tend to go back to their normal jobs, and Bullhorn automation kind of fades into the background. So we like to kind of refresh and make sure that people are aware of, the tool is always evolving. There's always more features being added, and making sure that you're getting the most out of using Bullhorn automation. So some of the common across the board common types automations that we'd be able to implement, and then you customize them to your secret sauce, right? So like, for example, as Russ mentioned, we could implement a chatbot on your website. When a candidate, or sales contact comes to the website, start asking questions about, is this the phone number that we have on file is, X, and display it. Is this the accurate phone number? If it's not, they can say no, they can key it in, and then it updates their record with the most accurate information so that you have it right on hand. There's no data entry needed by anybody other than the candidate or the contact updating that information. One common, very, very big use case is around redeployment. So you can have Bullhorn automation monitor all of your different placements individually, and as those end dates are approaching, depending on your process, 30 days, a week, 15 days in advance, you could either be notifying the actual recruiter of these placements are going to be coming up ending in the next 7 days. Is this accurate? They can then have the ability to update that placement end date. If it is accurate and there's no action needed, those reminders can then let them know that, okay, on this day, we are planning to automation will update that placement to completed. It will automatically update that candidate back to available. And if so desired, you can send a list of jobs that candidate is a match for, and then they can hopefully apply and get them redeployed even quicker. A lot of times you don't want those automatically going out to candidates, but you can send those same jobs internally to recruiters, so they have that touch point available to them right at the end of that initial placement. In addition to that, if there is passive candidates in your database, you can also use the resume upload feature that will let them automatically upload their resume that will then update all of their profile information and then send them out actual excuse me, actual jobs that are now matching up with their profile information.
The power, and as you can see here with these silly automations that we kind of assembled here, the power comes when you chain all of these activities together.
Yep.
So it's one thing to send an email out to your passive talent, but then what, right? Engage them in different ways, bring them to your site, have a chatbot talk with them. And if you're worried about kind of over contacting, then some of those automations can be just directed internally, Rick, to your point is,
yep.
If you've got a list of jobs tasks that are great, exactly. If you've got a list of great jobs for that candidate that's coming off of assignment, go ahead and just send that to the recruiter so they can have a quick, informed, proactive conversation. I mentioned too that this is primarily front office, but in meeting yesterday with the team, we said, well, it's worthwhile mentioning that for those of you who are on Bullhorn 1, there are automation hooks into creating billable charges for invoices, for things like conversion fees and
Conversion
direct
fees.
hire fees. So that is one that comes in really handy. Once that placement is confirmed, that billable charge can be sent over to the next invoice, and that invoice is in the mail so that you don't ever risk forgetting or missing that invoiceable amount. Awesome. Thank you, Rick. So I tried to sneak this past you. Obviously, we can't avoid that there are some limitations. The product is incredibly robust and continues to grow. If you need something more, if you need to access an area that automation does not currently access today, or if you really need something to be real time as you click through the screens in Bullhorn, you can have it your way with customization. And I'm going to tell a little story here about the evolution of customization. The first way that Bullhorn delivered this capability to its clients were by way of triggers. Triggers were a way that you as the client could install a little bit of custom code that sort of intercepts Bullhorn during an action, right? So you could, before a placement is saved, you could apply some logic to validate records. You could potentially update information on other parts of Bullhorn that are related to the placement record. It really did open up the ability to, for the first time, customize. So this was really you working with developers internally or potentially with a partner like Newberry, where you would build that custom code, you would host that custom code somewhere in the cloud, and Bullhorn would essentially just take that endpoint that calls the custom code and plug it into an action in your system. Those actions were all behind the save button when you edited an entity record. So that was a really big advancement in allowing customers to really affect and impact the way Bullhorn worked. Alongside that, you have the ability with Bullhorn's open API infrastructure to build your own hosted, again, in the cloud. Those are not happening on screen. They're really happening behind the scenes. So custom code that sits in the cloud using Bullhorn API really is watching and listening the data, looking for something to change or looking for some combination of data elements and pushing and pulling from Bullhorn to either insert, update, change the data in Bullhorn or potentially external systems, right? This is the framework on which most integrations, I should say, are built. So marketplace partners rely heavily on the Bullhorn REST APIs to extend data from Bullhorn into their systems and back for background screening, for you name it. Custom code is required here, and hosting is required. So you need to have the resources either through a partner network or in-house to develop this and host it. Now, the new player in town, newish since the Novo interface came out, really, I don't mean to discount form triggers because they do exist and they're still in place for customers today and they're not going anywhere. But going forward, we do deliver a lot more using the page and field interaction framework because it is hosted within Bullhorn. You no longer are required to host something outside. It actually lives within Bullhorn, and therefore it's kind of part of almost that core Bullhorn code and protected there. So that's where I'm saying, reliability, you don't have to worry about future updates. It is in Bullhorn. It's the same concept where you can apply logic, you can trigger action. Now you can do it on any click, on any edit screen. So it doesn't have to wait until you hit save. You can even use page and field interactions to manipulate the way the overview looks. So we talked about moving things around on the screen, cards, tabs. If you want to change the way a tab or card is shown based on some other logic, that is deliverable through Bullhorn page interactions. And as an example here, I just show you a candidate record. We have the ability now for the first time to really change the way different elements of that record look. So if you wanted to hide a specific tab for a specific user type, or if you want to change the way an workflow icon looked, based on some other criteria. Think about your job order. Here's an example where we've seen it before. If a job order does not require an interview because it's being delivered directly, we can make that icon disappear as you open that job order. So as you're loading the screen, we can make the overview be customized to that specific situation. With page and field interactions, the ideas are flowing in daily. And that's the point of this session too. It's let me inspire you because you'll start thinking about what could I do with this new knowledge of what Bullhorn can do with a little bit of extra help. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Aaron in just a minute to talk about some specific client examples. But just as these little ideas popped in, some of the ways we see this being used, placement validation, very common. Aaron will talk about that. But when you hit save on that placement, go check other Bullhorn entities to make sure that data is ready and you're not about to pass a partial record to your back office. Simple things like calculating an overtime rate as you key in the regular rate. Those of you on Bullhorn 1, it does that automatically for you on the rate card. For those of you on the front office, it doesn't. So really basic things. As you type information into Bullhorn, it can impact and affect other fields on the screen. This one, dynamically populating options based on some other criteria on the page. Well, that would be your dropdown of statuses. I don't want this particular user type to have the status approved. Now that's a user entitlement on the placement, but think about that in the context of other entities. We can affect what dropdown values are made available on screen load based on the user or based on any other data on file. Updating data across entities. When you hit save on that placement, I want it to go update the last placement date over here, update the last placement date over here, change the company status to X. Showing and hiding fields on the screen dynamically based on criteria or condition. That's a really powerful one. Making a field conditionally required as you fill in a form. With field maps, it's either required or not as soon as the screen loads, but with field interactions, we can make it if then required. And that's a really exciting way to kind of safeguard your system and your data. So with that, Aaron, I'll hand it to you and we can talk a little bit about sort of some life cycle customizations you've helped clients put in.
Yeah, thanks so much, Russ. So first one is job opening management. Delivered Bullhorn native, you have a field that is a number of openings. But we hear frequently from clients, hey, how do I make sure I've met the number of openings? How do I know what I have really delivered to this? How do I reinforce good behavior of ensuring my team is opening new and fresh job orders once we have filled all of the open positions? So we get the better reporting, the metrics like fill rate, time to fill, and ensuring your pipeline health is reliable. And we do that by delivering a combination of fields on that job, in addition to the native number of openings fields. So we can deliver a field like a number of lost or canceled by client, number of fills, and finally, the number of remaining openings. So what we would do is have a tight access control. Only certain users can update some of those fields to reduce accidental overhiring. We can put in quality gates to block new placements when your remaining openings are 0. And basically, the number of fills and the number of remainings will auto calculate with every approved placement that you put against that job. So from a list view, now your recruiters have the ability to truly prioritize job orders based upon the number of openings left. So pretty powerful interaction there. The second one is a placement validation. Russ alluded to that earlier. The key with this one is at a certain stage of a placement. Maybe it's hit a certain status of a placement. We can double check data integrity at the moment that it truly matters. Are we catching any missing invalid fields, such as your tax setup, work locations, rates, workers' comp class, time approvers, things of that nature? So we can prevent errors in timekeeping, payroll, invoicing, causing, that, and we can hopefully result in lower rework and tickets that are going back and forth with your pay bill and compliance team. And then finally is placement closeout. So the key really is making sure we are staying on top of closing our placements. When we close a placement out with a certain status, making sure that we have a proper actual end date put in the system. Are we capturing why the placement closed? And I'll circle back to partnering a page field interaction with automation for a more powerful impact. If we're updating that placement to being converted or hired by client, we can capture the conversion fees at that time. And then Rick and his friend in automation can swoop in and take care of billing out those conversion fees for those of you all that are on Bullhorn 1.
Awesome. Okay, with our last couple of minutes here, now what, right? These are all great ideas. You've inspired me, Russ, Aaron, Rick. I want to go back and get my list together. How do I do this? Well, you certainly can engage. You can engage your own developers. I wanted to talk a little bit about Newbury Plus, which will help you to accelerate your wish list. Newbury Plus is our kind of premium support offering that we engage with on existing Bullhorn customers. Offers a very flexible program where you can use Newbury to deliver any number of operational kind of solution services, all the way down to, hey, I need you to be my Bullhorn administrator as sort of a fractional resource, all the way up to really strategic, sort of discovery-driven and proactive engagements. Now, Newbury Plus is normally a monthly arrangement, but for those of you who have joined on today, if we've wet your whistle and you want to start spending some time thinking about how to customize, or you want a little extra help with the automations in place, for those of you here, we're going to give you free access to the Newbury Plus program without a monthly commitment. We are going to spend 2 or so hours with you for free off the clock, consulting with you on your wish list. So the fine folks here on this call have agreed we'll come in and help you with that wish list, get it organized, prioritize it, diagnose it, and tell you where and how we could help solve it. Or, hey, this isn't the greatest idea because of X, Y, and Z. We'll consult with you if you want to take advantage of this. We'll provide you with a plan at the end of those consulting hours, and then you can decide whether you want to move forward. We'll sell you a bundle of hours without having to subscribe to the Newbury Plus program, but you will be able to benefit from those discounted rates that Plus offers. You would only be paying for what you need, and if you really see benefit in getting some of those wish list items out there, this is a great way, and we're willing to jump in and help you get this done. So with that, in exactly 30 minutes, I want to say thank you to everyone for listening to this kind of speed session. You'll absolutely be given access to recordings and follow-up materials. If you did have any ideas or questions you wanted to share with us, please don't hesitate to reach out. You've got our contact info now, and we're always happy to have the discussion with you. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you on our next Confessions. Thanks all.